There is a quiet suspicion that lives in the back of many hearts, a thought rarely spoken aloud because it feels too daring, too hopeful, almost irresponsible. It is the thought that perhaps your life is not accidental, that your struggles are not meaningless, and that your presence on this earth is not merely to fill space between birth and death. You may have tried to silence this thought, telling yourself it is pride or fantasy, but it keeps returning, especially in moments of stillness, when the noise of the world grows thin and your soul dares to ask why it is here at all. It is precisely in that question that something sacred begins to stir. God has a habit of working in ways that offend our expectations. We imagine that if we were chosen for something significant, it would feel grand from the beginning. There would be trumpets, clarity, confidence, and an unmistakable sense of arrival. Instead, what many experience is confusion, resistance, and a strange dissatisfaction with ordinary life. You go about your days doing what must be done, yet something in you refuses to settle. You feel as though you are meant for more, though you cannot yet name what that more is. This discomfort is not a flaw in your faith. It is often the first sign of calling. If God only chose the obviously qualified, history would be remarkably dull. The pattern, instead, is that He chooses those who are painfully aware of their limits. You look at yourself and see weaknesses that disqualify you, habits that embarrass you, and fears that seem incompatible with greatness. Yet God does not consult your resume before placing His hand upon your life. He sees not only what you are, but what you are becoming, and more importantly, what He intends to do through you once you stop insisting on your own small definitions. There is a peculiar cruelty in the way we measure significance. We compare ourselves to others and conclude that bigness must look like visibility, applause, and influence that can be counted and displayed. But God's mathematics are not taught in any school. He weighs obedience more than outcome, and faithfulness more than fame. What you call small, He may call foundational. What you dismiss as insignificant, He may be using to shape a strength that will one day carry great weight. Consider how often God begins His greatest works in obscurity. Before a message is spoken to the world, it is whispered in the heart of one who feels unready to hear it. Before light floods a room, it begins as a spark, fragile enough to be extinguished by a careless breath. You may be in a season where nothing about your life looks impressive. Your prayers feel clumsy, your progress slow, and your circumstances unimpressive. Yet this is often the soil in which divine purpose takes root, hidden from the eye, but alive with potential. You may wonder why, if God has chosen you for something bigger, the road has been so narrow and difficult. Should not chosen lives be easier, smoother, less burdened by doubt and delay? But ease has never been the proof of divine favor. In fact, comfort is more likely to dull your hunger for God than deepen it. Difficulty, on the other hand, has a way of stripping away illusions until only what truly matters remains. God is less interested in making you comfortable than in making you capable of carrying what He has prepared. There are moments when God seems silent, and these are often the moments when He is doing His most important work. Silence is not absence, it is preparation. Just as a teacher pauses before revealing a truth to ensure the student is ready to receive it, God sometimes withholds explanation until your heart is strong enough to hold it without breaking. In these seasons, faith becomes less about feeling and more about trust, less about understanding and more about surrender. You may have noticed that the very things you wish were different about you are often the things God uses most powerfully. Your sensitivity may become compassion, your past mistakes may become wisdom, and your pain may become the language through which others finally feel understood. God wastes nothing, not even your failures. What you see as detours are often the very paths that lead you where you need to go, though they rarely look that way while you are walking them. There is also a danger in believing that being chosen means being superior. God does not choose because you are better, He chooses because He is good. The calling placed upon your life is not a medal to be admired, but a responsibility to be carried. To be chosen is not to be elevated above others, but to be entrusted with something that requires humility, patience, and love. The moment you believe the calling is about you, is the moment you begin to lose sight of the one who gave it. Many people spend their lives waiting for clarity before they act, not realizing that clarity often comes after obedience, not before it. God rarely reveals the entire plan at once, because he desires relationship, not mere compliance. He invites you to walk with him, step by step, trusting that the next piece of the journey will be shown when you are ready to take it. This requires a courage that is quiet and persistent, the kind that keeps moving even when certainty feels out of reach. You might feel unqualified because you still wrestle with doubt, temptation, or fear. Yet faith has never meant the absence of these struggles. It has always meant choosing trust in spite of them. The heroes of faith were not fearless people, but faithful ones. They moved forward, trembling, unsure, and often reluctant, yet they moved forward all the same. God does not wait for you to become fearless before he uses you. He teaches you courage by calling you to act while fear is still present. There is also the matter of timing, which is perhaps one of the most difficult lessons to accept. You want results now, answers now, transformation now. But God operates on a timeline that values depth over speed. What is rushed may look impressive for a moment, but lacks the roots to endure. What is grown slowly has a strength that storms cannot easily destroy. Waiting, though painful, is not wasted time. It is time in which God is aligning circumstances, shaping character, and preparing you for what you have asked him to. It is worth noticing how often God calls people while they are in the middle of ordinary life. He does not wait for perfect conditions. He meets them at work, in routines, in the midst of responsibilities that feel mundane. This is because God is not confined to sacred spaces. He transforms ordinary ground into holy ground simply by his presence. Your daily life, with all its repetition and fatigue, may be the very place where your calling is being forged. You may have assumed that if God had chosen you for something bigger, you would feel more confident by now. Yet confidence is often the fruit of walking in purpose, not the prerequisite. As you take small steps of obedience, confidence grows quietly, like a muscle strengthened through repeated use. The lie that tells you to wait until you feel ready keeps many from ever discovering what God is capable of doing through them. There is a strange paradox in the life of faith. The more you try to hold on to control, the yes may lure your world becomes, but the more you surrender control to God, the wider your life expands. Being chosen does not mean you are promised an easy path. It means you are invited into a life that matters, a life that echoes beyond your own comfort and convenience. This invitation is both exhilarating and terrifying, for it asks you to trust God not only with your future but with your identity. You may feel as though your prayers have gone unanswered, as though God has overlooked you while blessing others, yet comparison is a thief of calling. What God is doing in someone else's life is not a commentary on your worth or your destiny. Each calling is unique, shaped by specific experiences, wounds, and gifts. When you measure yourself against others, you risk missing the quiet work God is doing within you, work that cannot be replicated or replaced. It is often in brokenness that calling becomes clearest. When the illusions of self-sufficiency collapse, you become aware of your need for God in a way that prosperity rarely produces. In these moments, you discover that your strength was never meant to be the foundation of your life. God's power is most clearly seen, not when you appear strong, but when you are willing to admit weakness and depend on him fully. There is also a cost to being chosen that is rarely discussed. To say yes to God is to say no to certain comforts, certain paths, and certain versions of yourself that can no longer exist. You are to become who he is calling you to be. This pruning is painful, not because God delights in loss, but because growth often requires letting go of what is familiar. Yet what you gain in return is not merely purpose, but freedom. The freedom that comes from living aligned with the truth of who you were created to be. You may not yet see the full shape of what God has planned, but you can often sense its weight. It feels heavier than a casual dream, more demanding than a passing desire. It calls you when you would rather rest and challenges you when you would rather remain comfortable. This weight is not meant to crush you. It is meant to anchor you, to remind you that your life is connected to something eternal. There will be days when you doubt everything you believe, when the silence feels unbearable and the calling feels like a burden you never asked for. In these moments, remember that doubt does not cancel calling. Even the strongest faith has room for questions. What matters is not the absence of doubt, but the decision to keep seeking God within it, trusting that He is patient enough to meet you there. God has chosen you not because you are flawless, but because you are willing to be formed. The process is rarely glamorous and often unseen, but it is deeply intentional. Every delay, every challenge, every season of waiting is shaping you for a purpose that is larger than your current understanding. And though you may not yet see how all the pieces fit together, there will come a moment when you look back and realize that nothing was random, nothing was wasted, and even the most painful chapters were quietly preparing you for what comes next, for the responsibility you will one day carry, for the lives you will touch, and for the truth you will be asked to embody when the time arrives, and you finally understand that the calling you sensed all along was not meant to make you feel important, but to draw you closer to God, to deepen your dependence on Him, and to lead you into a life that reflects His purpose in ways you could never have imagined, even now as you stand on the edge of becoming, still learning to trust, still learning to listen, still learning to walk forward even when the path ahead remains partially hidden, and your heart continues to wrestle with the quiet, but persistent sense that what God has begun in you is far from finished and is still unfolding in ways that will require more faith, more patience, and more surrender than you have yet given. And yet even in this moment, even before the full picture is revealed, something within you knows that the journey itself is shaping you for what lies ahead, and that the very tension you feel between who you are and who you are becoming is a sign that God is still at work, still calling, still inviting you to step further into the purpose He has placed upon your life as you continue to move forward, carrying this quiet calling with you into whatever comes next. That unfinished feeling you carry is not an accident. It is the mark of a story still being written. God rarely completes His work in neat, closed chapters while we are still living inside them. Instead, He leaves threads loose enough to keep us dependent, alert, and listening. You may wish for certainty, but God often gives you direction without detail, so that trust, rather than control, becomes the foundation of your obedience. In this way, your faith is not built on outcomes but on relationship, and relationship is always His primary concern. There is something deeply unsettling about being chosen for something you cannot yet fully see. It creates a holy restlessness, a tension between gratitude and fear. Gratitude because you sense that your life matters beyond what you can measure. Fear because the weight of that truth presses against your weaknesses and exposes how little you feel prepared. Yet God has never waited for readiness, as humans define it. He prepares by calling, and He strengthens by asking you to walk while still uncertain. The path itself becomes the training ground. Often the very delay that frustrates you is protecting you. If God were to place the full weight of His purpose on you too soon, it might crush you rather than empower you. Maturity grows quietly, formed through small, repeated acts of obedience that seem insignificant in isolation. You may underestimate these moments because they lack drama, but heaven does not share our obsession with spectacle. What you do in secret, what you choose when no one is watching, is often where the deepest transformation occurs. You may have noticed that your heart is unusually sensitive to injustice, brokenness, or suffering. Certain pains affect you more deeply than others, and you may have wondered why. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is often the doorway to calling. God frequently allows you to feel a particular burden because He intends to work through you in that very place. The ache you carry may be an invitation rather than a curse, pointing toward the work He has quietly prepared for you to do. There will be moments when you feel misunderstood, even by those closest to you. When God places something uncommon within you, it does not always translate easily into words others can grasp. Loneliness can accompany calling, not because God is absent, but because the path ahead is one you must walk with Him before others can recognize it. In these moments, resist the temptation to dilute your convictions simply to feel accepted. What God has entrusted to you is too valuable to be reshaped by fear of disapproval. It is also important to understand that being chosen does not exempt you from ordinary responsibilities. God does not remove you from daily life, He meets you within it. Faithfulness in the small, routine tasks of life is not separate from calling, it is the proving ground of it. How you treat people, how you handle disappointment, how you respond when plans fail, these moments are shaping the kind of vessel you are becoming. Calling is not merely about what you will do one day, it is about who you are becoming every day. There will be times when you look back at your past and feel disqualified by your mistakes. Shame has a way of whispering that God may have chosen others, but surely not someone like you. Yet grace does not work by erasing your past. It redeems it. The very experiences you wish you could undo often become the places where God's mercy is most visible. Your story, with all its broken edges, may one day become the testimony that gives someone else permission to hope again. You may also struggle with the fear of failure. What if you misunderstand God? What if you take a step and fall? But faith has never been about flawless execution. It has always been about willingness. God is not surprised by your missteps, He weaves them into the journey. Failure, when surrendered, becomes a teacher rather than a verdict. The only failure that truly diminishes calling is the refusal to move at all. There is a subtle danger in waiting for perfect conditions. You tell yourself that once you're more confident, more knowledgeable, or more secure, then you will say yes. But perfection is a moving target that often keeps people stationary. God's invitations are rarely timed according to your comfort. He calls you into motion so that dependence replaces self-reliance. Each step taken in faith loosens the grip of fear and expands your capacity to trust. At times, God will ask you to release things you once prayed for. This can be confusing and painful, yet it is often part of refining your desires. What once served a purpose may no longer align with where He is leading you. Letting go is not a sign of loss, but of transition. God removes not to punish, but to make room for what cannot fit alongside what you are clinging to. Trusting Him in these moments requires believing that He sees further than you do. You may feel pressure to prove your calling, to make it visible so that others will take you seriously. But God is not impressed by self-promotion. He is patient enough to let fruit speak when the time is right. There is a confidence that comes not from announcing who you are, but from quietly becoming it. When God opens doors, they are not easily shut by human opinion. Until then, your task is not to convince, but to remain faithful. The weight you feel is not meant to isolate you from joy. Calling does not demand constant heaviness. It invites deeper joy, one rooted not in circumstance, but in purpose. Joy grows when you align your life with God's will, even when the road is difficult. It is the quiet assurance that your life is not being wasted, that even the hard days are contributing to something meaningful beyond what you can see. You may find yourself returning again and again to prayer, not always with eloquent words, but with honesty. God is not offended by your questions, He welcomes them. Faith that has never wrestled is often fragile. Faith that has struggled and remained is resilient. Each time you bring your uncertainty to God instead of hiding from Him, trust deepens and the relationship grows stronger. There will be seasons when obedience feels costly and unseen. You may wonder if it matters at all. But heaven keeps careful record of faithfulness that earth overlooks. The choices you make in alignment with God's will echo in ways you may never fully comprehend this side of eternity. What feels small to you may be shaping outcomes far beyond your immediate awareness. You are not chosen to replace others, nor are others chosen to replace you. God's design is not competitive but complementary. Each life has a role that cannot be fulfilled by another. When you compare, you not only diminish yourself but misunderstand the nature of God's work. He is weaving many stories together, each necessary, each distinct. Your Fullness contributes to a greater tapestry, one that only He can fully see. At times, you may wish God would speak louder, clearer, more definitively. Yet often His guidance comes as a gentle nudge rather than a command. He invites rather than forces, knowing that love grows best where freedom remains intact. Learning to discern His voice takes time, patience, and practice. You learn by listening, by responding, and sometimes by realizing in hindsight that He was guiding you all along. There will be moments when exhaustion sets in and you wonder if the journey is worth it. Rest is not a sign of weakness but of wisdom. God does not demand constant striving. He invites rhythms of renewal. Even creation rests. When you pause to breathe, to worship, to simply be with God without agenda, you are not abandoning your calling. You are sustaining it. You may not always feel brave, but courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite it. God does not mock your fear. He meets you within it. Each act of courage, no matter how small, expands your capacity for the next one. Over time, what once terrified you becomes familiar ground, not because fear disappeared, but because trust grew stronger. There is also a humility that comes with being chosen. You begin to understand that the work is bigger than your preferences, your comfort, or your reputation. This humility guards your heart against pride and keeps you teachable. God can work powerfully through those who remain aware that everything they have is a gift rather than an achievement. You may sense that your life is being shaped in ways you did not anticipate. Old dreams fade, new desires emerge, and your understanding of success begins to change. This reshaping is not loss, it is alignment. God is tuning your heart to resonate with His purposes, even when the process feels disorienting. Trust grows as you learn to release your grip on who you thought you needed to be. Sometimes the calling feels too big, too heavy, too demanding. In those moments, remember that God does not place the full weight of it on you at once. He carries it with you. What He asks is not self-sufficiency but partnership. You are not meant to accomplish His purposes alone. You are meant to walk with Him, step by step, learning dependence as a form of strength. There will be days when obedience feels ordinary, almost boring. Yet consistency is one of the most powerful expressions of faith. God often builds extraordinary outcomes through ordinary faithfulness sustained over time. Do not despise the slow work. Roots grow underground long before fruit appears above it. You may not yet see the impact of your yes, but it is unfolding nonetheless. Lives are being influenced, paths altered, and hearts stirred in ways you may never trace back to yourself. God delights in working through willing hearts, not because they are impressive, but because they are available. Availability, more than ability, opens the door to transformation. As you continue forward, there will be moments of clarity followed by seasons of mystery. This rhythm is not meant to frustrate you, but to deepen your reliance on God rather than on understanding. Faith matures not when everything makes sense, but when you trust God even when it does not. And so you continue, not with all the answers, but with a growing awareness that your life is held by hands far wiser than your own. The calling remains, sometimes quiet, sometimes heavy, sometimes burning brightly within you, urging you onward even when the path ahead remains uncertain, inviting you to keep walking, keep listening, keep trusting, as God continues to shape, refine, and lead you further into the purpose that is still unfolding, still forming, still drawing you forward into what has not yet been fully revealed. As you move deeper into this unfolding journey, you may begin to notice that the calling does not always announce itself with urgency. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet persistence, a gentle insistence that refuses to fade even when you try to ignore it. You distract yourself, fill your days with activity, convince yourself that this stirring will pass. Yet it returns in moments of stillness, in prayers whispered late at night, in a longing that cannot be satisfied by comfort or distraction. This persistence is not meant to torment you. It is meant to keep you awake to the truth that your life is tethered to something eternal. There will be seasons when obedience feels repetitive, almost dull. You show up, you pray, you serve, you wait, and nothing seems to change. These seasons test not your ability, but your endurance. Faithfulness over time shapes a depth of character that momentary passion cannot produce. God is not in a hurry even when you are. He knows what kind of strength is required to sustain what He has planned, and He is patient enough to build it slowly. You may struggle with the tension between trusting God and wanting reassurance. You want signs that you are not imagining this calling, that you have not misunderstood His voice. Yet faith often grows strongest when reassurance is scarce. When you choose to trust without constant confirmation, your reliance shifts from circumstance to conviction. God is teaching you to walk by faith rather than by sight, to lean into His presence rather than demand constant evidence of progress. At times you may feel that others seem to advance more quickly, achieving what you once hoped for while you remain where you are. This comparison can quietly erode joy if left unchecked. But progress in God's kingdom is not measured by speed or visibility. What looks like Dela, why may be refinement, and what looks like success may be preparation for trials unseen. Your journey is tailored specifically to you, shaped by God's intimate knowledge of your heart. There is also the reality that obedience may sometimes lead you into places you would not have chosen for yourself. God's ways are not always aligned with your preferences. He may lead you through discomfort, misunderstanding, or sacrifice, not because He delights in your pain, but because these experiences deepen your dependence on Him. In surrendering your expectations, you learn to trust His wisdom more than your own. You may find that as you grow, your definition of greatness changes. What once seemed impressive begins to feel hollow, and what once seemed insignificant begins to carry weight. Love, humility, patience, and integrity take on new importance. God is reshaping your values so that when He entrusts you with greater responsibility, your heart will be anchored in what truly matters. There will be moments when fear whispers that you are not enough, not strong enough, not wise enough, not faithful enough. But God's calling has never depended on human sufficiency. It rests on His power, made perfect in weakness. When you acknowledge your limits, you make room for His strength to be revealed. The awareness of your need becomes the doorway through which grace enters. You may also encounter resistance, both internal and external. Doubts arise, distractions pull at your attention, and voices question your direction. Resistance does not always indicate error. Often it accompanies growth. When something within you begins to shift, forces that prefer the familiar push back. In these moments, discernment becomes essential. Not every voice deserves equal weight, and not every doubt deserves your obedience. Prayer may evolve during this time. What once felt like a list of requests become a conversation shaped by listening as much as speaking. You begin to notice that God is less concerned with changing your circumstances than with transforming your heart. As your desires align with His, prayer becomes less about control and more about communion. You may feel tempted to retreat when the cost of obedience becomes clear. There is a vulnerability in living open-handed, in trusting God with outcomes you cannot manage. Yet retreat often brings a deeper unrest than obedience ever could. Peace does not come from avoiding calling, but from embracing it, even when it stretches you beyond what feels safe. There will be days when gratitude feels difficult, when disappointment overshadows hope. In these moments, remember that gratitude is not denial of pain. It is recognition of God's presence within it. Choosing gratitude does not erase struggle, but it reframes it, reminding you that you are not alone and that your story is still unfolding. You may notice that God often uses ordinary people and ordinary moments to accomplish extraordinary purposes. A conversation, a decision, an act of kindness that seems small at the time may ripple outward in ways you cannot foresee. Faithfulness in the present moment is never wasted, even when its impact remains hidden. As you continue, you may wrestle with identity, with the question of who you are becoming. Calling has a way of reshaping self-understanding. You begin to see yourself not merely as a collection of roles or achievements, but as a vessel being formed. This shift can be unsettling, but it is also freeing. Your worth becomes rooted not in performance but in purpose. There will be seasons of clarity when direction feels obvious and steps feel sure. Treasure these moments, but do not depend on them. They are gifts, not guarantees. When clarity fades, trust does not have to disappear with it. God remains constant. Even when your understanding fluctuates, you may find yourself returning again and again to the same lessons, learning patience, humility, trust, and surrender in new ways each time. Growth is rarely linear. Progress often includes revisiting familiar struggles with deeper insight and greater grace. Do not be discouraged by repetition. It often signals deepening rather than stagnation. At times, you may feel overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility that comes with being chosen. Remember that God does not expect you to carry it alone. He invites you into partnership, into a shared journey where His strength sustains you. Dependence is not failure, it is design. You may be tempted to simplify the calling, to reduce it to something manageable, but God's purposes are often larger than your comfort zone. Embracing them requires faith that stretches beyond what you can control. In releasing the need to fully understand, you allow God to work in ways that exceed your imagination. There will be moments when obedience feels costly and unseen. Yet unseen faithfulness is often the soil from which visible fruit grows. God sees what others overlook. He honors what is done in secret, shaping outcomes that may only become visible long after the moment has passed. As time goes on, you may realize that the calling is not a destination to reach, but a way of living. It shapes how you love, how you serve, how you respond to the world around you. It becomes woven into the fabric of your daily life, guiding decisions both large and small. You may not always feel equipped, but equipment often comes through use. As you step into what God asks, you discover abilities you did not know you had, strength that emerges only under pressure. Growth reveals itself through action, not anticipation. There will be seasons when the weight feels lighter, when joy rises easily in purpose. Feels clear. Receive these moments with gratitude. They are reminders of why you began, glimpses of the goodness that accompanies obedience. Let them sustain you when the path becomes more difficult again. You may also face moments of disappointment, when expectations are unmet. Dreams take longer than hoped. Outcomes differ from what you imagined. In these moments, trust that God's vision exceeds your own. What feels like loss may be redirection, guiding you towards something deeper and more lasting. As you continue, your faith matures. It becomes less reactive, less dependent on emotion, and more rooted in conviction. You learn to trust God's character even when His ways remain mysterious. This trust becomes a steady anchor, holding you firm amid uncertainty. You may find that your calling draws you into deeper compassion for others. As you become aware of your own need for grace, you extend it more freely. Your story, with all its struggles, becomes a bridge rather than a barrier, connecting you to others in meaningful ways. There will be moments when silence returns, when God seems distant again. These moments are invitations to deeper listening, rather than signs of abandonment. Faith learns to rest even in silence, trusting that God is present and active even when He is not speaking loudly. As you move forward, you may realize that the greatest transformation has been within you. Long before circumstances change, your heart changes. You become more patient, more humble, more attuned to God's presence. This inner transformation prepares you for whatever outward responsibilities may come. You may not yet see the full impact of your obedience, but it is unfolding in ways beyond your awareness. God is weaving your faithfulness into a larger story, one that extends beyond your lifetime. Each step you take matters, even when its significance remains hidden. And so you continue walking, sometimes confident, sometimes uncertain, but always drawn forward by that quiet sense of purpose that refuses to let you settle for less than what God is doing in you, shaping you through every step, every delay, every moment of surrender, inviting you to trust Him more deeply as the journey carries on, still open, still unfolding, still calling you forward into what has not yet been fully revealed. And so, as this long and hidden work continues, let it settle gently into your heart that being chosen by God was never about sudden greatness or instant arrival, but about faithful becoming. You were not called because you had all the answers, but because God desired your yes. Not because you were strong enough, but because you were willing to be shaped. Not because the path would be easy, but because the purpose would be worth it. What lies ahead may still feel undefined, and the road may remain partially obscured, yet this much is certain: your life is not drifting, your waiting is not empty, and your obedience is not unnoticed. God is patiently forming something enduring within you, something that will unfold in its appointed time, carrying more meaning than applause and more weight than success. And when the day comes that you finally see how every quiet step, every surrendered fear, and every unseen act of faith was woven together, you will understand that the true miracle was not only what God accomplished through you, but who He patiently transformed you into along the way.